Welcome, guys. It is Wednesday. We've made it. It is April 28th, and you are tuning in live here. That's right. It's live for No Man's Land. And that is, of course, I say lightly political, moderate. What word could I use that may or may not offend or misguide someone in these crazy, uncertain times? But really, my goal is, of course, to provide you with just a place to casually be able to say what is on your mind, to feel safe, to be able to take some advice from here, from there, from the few people joining us on occasion that want to be rational about the news, that it's okay to feel, but that you don't want to lead with your heart. Instead, we want to be able to discuss the news and some certain things that might be happening where we are. And of course, I encourage you to share with you in the chat below, tag someone, share wherever you are. Let me know where you're joining me from. Where are you currently at this Wednesday? I am in northern Minnesota in the United States of America. And I know that we have viewers from all over the world joining us from all sorts of spaces. And in Minnesota, we definitely have some news, whether it was last week's Chauvin trial, it seems like, the world was watching. And now it's just gone. Now it's crickets. Now it's different. Laws have been passed in his honor. Certain things have been done. But what's really continuing to happen in the wake of it all is the crime is up and homicides are continuing. I believe we had it was either 21st or 28th of the year. And it's just, one continuation of horrible narratives after the other. But, there's just a lot of things that I would love to talk about. I know a few of you had sent to me just personally what you were struggling with. And so I want to address that first. And now these are things that aren't necessarily new in the news. These were happening, I hate to say it, but months ago in the great censorship after the inauguration of President Joe Biden. We kind of have been mirroring, and I know that people don't necessarily like to admit this or feel this way or even see this, especially with America and what we want to be optimistic about. But without saying too much, to be able to say that the Biden administration has mirrored a lot of the Chinese movements and to be taking us out of a certain space and into a more different one. And that means that, there are certain things going on in China. I'm not familiar if anyone's even aware of like Myanmar and genocides and major movements of, you have LeBron James over here doing headlines in America, tweeting, "You're next" for racist narratives against cops. Good afternoon. But at the same time, this is also someone who is pushing propaganda over in China where the merchandising of the NBA is a huge deal. And this is someone who is a political chess piece and they know it. And that's really sad to me that role models, what I remember seeing as, Michael Jordan and his cardboard cutout standing in line at school, encouraging me to drink milk at lunchtime. Now we are having these same people encouraging us to enact violence on people who otherwise serve our community and are heroes. So it's difficult to swallow as a mother of two young boys. Who are we giving our children to look up to? Who are the role models of today? And we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the role models that you see here and there in the media stepping in and out, who maybe should and shouldn't be, and what standards we are shifting. And why? Because, right, that is the magic in it, being able to talk about something and ask why. Why is this happening? What is going on? Hi, Tina. Hi, Chet. Hi, Matt. Again, be sure and post. Where are you guys joining me from? Again, I'm here in Minnesota. The weather today is really beautiful. And despite some of the riot laws and things happening in America, people getting kind of their panties in a wad and all sorts of things, and some things rightfully so. The headlines this morning when you woke up, depending on where you were again, you've got the New York Times telling us that Biden has a plan for free community college for everyone. However, there are big challenges ahead for this otherwise quite Marxist policies. Now, some of the things that are being brought up in the recovery plan, and of course, you can't read the New York Times or follow into the news of any of these unless you're a paid subscriber. So following the money trail of what exactly is happening with the Biden plan and the recovery plan and whether or not it is even going to pass. Relief package, recovery plan, how have you heard it advertised? for free healthcare, free this, free that, free all the things, right? It's kind of in the Biden emergency action plan to save the economy. Yes. The American jobs plan. Yes. The rescue plan. Yes. Good afternoon, Jason. Welcome. We have Jason Easterling, who is a fellow podcaster and host out of Minnesota. But the Biden emergency action plan, the economy plan, the relief bill, the recovery bills, all of these, appointing task forces to help authorities basically put into production a sort of response to the pandemic. And the fact sheet and the breakdown and the money really, again, it sounds good in theory, but it's quite expensive. And it's also something that at this point they're saying, gosh, it could be more than $3 trillion. And where is this money coming from? Where in the world and how in the world does this actually build back something as far as an infrastructure? And the word, of course, is infrastructure. Now, you guys, I want you to focus on this because, of course, if you're new to No Man's Land, you have no idea who I am. Hi, I'm Sarah Soderlund. But I also spent a lot of time in my formal education working for and with forensic psychology. So social reform, criminal reform, whether it's risk assessment or judicial assessments of someone's recidivism, these spaces of understanding people individually, but also how they act in groups, and especially with violent behavior and things like the Stanford prison experiment. How and why and what are the influences that are going to bend the ethics and morals of a person? We're talking about standard operating procedure at places like Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo, these kinds of places that need to be monitored. But at the same time, it's a different no man's land, if you will, where the rules are a little, prisoner of war. They're different, and rightfully so should be. However, micromanaging all of these different spaces can be quite difficult. And I apparently can't say that, guys. Woo! Did you see that? It kicked me right off. So, this is going to be interesting. Trying to do news, reporting about the Biden administration and only saying positive things, but also truthful things. How do you feel about it? Oh my goodness. Yeah, guys, that was kind of weird. I don't know how to explain that, and I'm sorry. Anyway, we have new food programs. Of course, this is the last food program we saw coming out of a Democratic president. It was horrific. It was absolutely horrible. Michelle Obama's shifts in the lunchroom. I spoke with Connie Bartley. She's a woman out of Platte City, Missouri. She's been a lunch superintendent, space, provider for many schools in the Midwest. And I spoke with her on this, and gosh, what she had to say over the last, 20 years in that industry, watching how schools have changed. The expansions are not a great thing. And gosh, the way that things have been handled in the pandemic, some schools better than others, of course. But yeah, we want to be able to talk to people, go to the source and say, do we really feel like this is a good idea? Do we really feel like we want to invest trillions? No, I'm not using the B word, guys. I'm not using the M word. We're using the T word. T's, baby, not P's. This is a plan that is being pitched joint across Congress. And we're going to hear a little bit more directly from the president, believe it or not. I know, right? It doesn't happen much in this administration, but he is supposed to be taking the camera today to address joint Congress session and talking about and I want to go back to the word because here's the word that kicked me. The words matter, guys. Infrastructure. Infrastructure. If it kicks me off, I'll come right back. I promise. I have a VPN, and so we can do this. We can do this. But that is the magic word. And of course, that is not always what we think it is. We need to be able to follow the money trail. We need to be able to see who this puts us in debt to. We also need to be very aware that while these things are happening over here, to create a codependency of, let's go ahead and provide free preschool and free AA degrees, and for families and seniors that they're going to have to do this, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And of course, these proposals are going to really make more Americans codependent on a system that clearly we all know doesn't really work. The breakdown was $225 billion towards high quality childcare. Again, you guys, when we say high quality, I want you to think. I want you to think about your DMV. I want you to think about your post office, I think, or believe is the only federal place that is money. They take care of themselves. But any other government space, I want you to think about that. And I want you to use a sliding scale. And I want you to tell me if you feel like it's a high quality or low quality space, and that you would want the government being responsible for the services of taking care of your child, rather than it being a business space where people who want to do that business and who enjoy being around children are running this and held to a standard that is much higher than that of government standard. It would be a standard that, is hopefully going to be open, capitalist, like, oh, well, I don't want to go here. I want to go here. Or if it's government controlled and required and regulated and this sort of things, it's probably going to be proximity. And I want you to guys, again, think those people in the ghetto, are they going to be able to drive to their childcare service? No, it's going to be this childcare service near you. Well, I don't like this childcare service. I want to take, well, there is no other option because childcare service is now government provided. So there are no private spaces. This is going to be one of those, I kind of feel like this is a good in theory, bad in action kind of Marxism thing. Another $225 billion to create national comprehensive paid family medical leave programs. I'm not entirely sure what the paid family and medical leave programs is going to be providing when under the pandemic, there are certain extensions already for paid leave. Now, United States, as far as other countries go, first world countries, or even second world countries, as far as I'm concerned, we are so far under and so far behind the paid leave for medical or family. I mean, for those of you joining me, please let me know your experiences. This is going to be something that we are just going to be barely catching up to other countries. It's not really like we're putting ourselves ahead in any way, shape, or form. We're going to be kind of getting ourselves on par, maybe. We're not going to be, at least in my opinion, again, I think the average person is getting like 2 to 4 paid days off a year. It's like 1 day for every full work month. If you're looking at like the breakdown of the poster that goes in the back of everybody's, government bathroom work job, it's not that much. So being able to provide that really is just humane treatment of those of us working in a post-depression kind of space and, a dystopic wartime pandemic. So thank you, government, for the extra cough. How about just provide? No, just stop. Anyway, we'll be careful. $200 billion for a universal preschool, again, for 3 and 4-year-olds. It's not for babies, not for infants. It's for 3 and 4-year-olds, offered through a national partnership with states. This really isn't, and I'll just share with you my experiences here. Now I'm in Minnesota. Now I moved out of Minneapolis, where I worked directly in forensic social services, very familiar with the law enforcement, graduated recently with the Minnesota law enforcement degree and attended the Rasmussen police program there. So I've had my fingers in that realm. The childcare and schools in and around Minneapolis are not good. My oldest was coming home from kindergarten. We were on a wait list. You don't get to go where's near to you. There wasn't a bus to come pick them up. Like as a parent, you're waiting, that kindergarten first day, they're going to hop on the bus and they're going to, no. There were more than like 5 different languages being spoken in the kindergarten class. And so just sitting down in a circle to get through the ABCs with one PA and a language barrier and a teacher to student ratio that was like more than 30-1 in a kindergarten, which should be 15, I believe. It was redonkulous, and that was the best. So it just was not going to be something that I was comfortable with, but then homeschooling wasn't an option. I was working full time, going to school full time. I didn't have that luxury or that privilege. And my husband was working full time and still is working full time. And when you have a small child, when you're breastfeeding, talking about paid family leave or just the ability to bring your child to work, I'm working in law enforcement. You can't, that's not safe. What are you doing? You have to make these choices, which is probably why in the most recent census, having children, it is the lowest rate of children since the Great Depression. And so it's slowed dramatically, which is great for eugenics, of course. Bill Gates is probably very happy. However, it's indicative of either people being unable to, or just the fact that what our lives have become are more about being a part of a system and a money system than being able to have even an opportunity of decent choices to raise our children in a healthy environment. Do we feel like universal preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds by a partnership with the states and this is going to work? Well, when we moved out of Minneapolis, we moved north to a location that was known for its schools. Living in the district, we are allowed to have our children go to the school, the public schools, and it provides free early education for pre-K. So 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 2 years before kindergarten, you get free, believe this? Hear me, guys, in Minnesota. You get the opportunity to take your child to this location. Now, I'm in a great location that wasn't offered to me in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. Now it was offered, but there were so many people. There were so many people on a wait and a lack of people wanting to utilize this that it wasn't applicable in a place where the community didn't support the community. Now, in a smaller community where the community actually is there and people want to provide this service because they care about the family system and the family unit, and the nuclear system is something that works with the community. We want to keep families here. Then it was offered and provided. And I don't need this. We don't need this. We live in a community where paid family medical leave, working for a business or owning your own company, or having a business that you work for where you know your boss, you know your employees, and they obviously don't want you coming in sick. So you are a part of a machine that's aware of you and says, take family leave. You're pregnant, you're birthing, you're doing this. You're better here than there. Look at what we've been able to accomplish on Zoom. You need to spend $225 billion to create comprehensive leave when you just told everybody stay home or else we fine you. That seems weird. Anyway, I just want you to see how it's applying and how it's panning out, because many of these places that are fine already have these already have it set up because it's something that is a byproduct of a healthy community. Rather than creating it for a unhealthy community and making it more codependent and giving it the teat of a crappy mother, this is not a good thing. You don't want this. You really don't. You want to be doing things that are initiatives and incentives to build a healthy community, not coming from democratic policies that are going to do exactly the opposite, which they're known to do. They do. Look at it. You can see it in action. $109 billion ensuring free community college for all students. Now, you guys, again, supply and demand. When something is made free, hi, Terry. Hi, Mary. Hi, Matt. If you make it free, you kind of get what you pay for, right? You get what you pay for. So this is really, really, really important. Mary, the student teacher ratio is so bad. My cousin is teaching kindergarten in Texas, and it was a horror story. Now see, and that's in Texas, which Texas, you have people going in mass exodus to Texas, to Florida, to Utah, to these states that in just this last census has shown that have suburbs that are putting forward the community effort, that are trying to get back to a wholesome space. We don't say back as in going back to a past or a racist Trump space. No, it's meant back to a space where perhaps if we can, if it's even salvageable at this point, to go back where privacy, personal integrity, personal space, these things are just there and inherent. That would be nice, right? We don't need to spend all of this. Of course, you don't need to spend all of it. It will naturally be donated or taken care of or kind of come to fruition when the community cares for each other. But when you make something free, you kind of degrade its contents. And the community college thing, I worked for the A+ program. I believe it's still something that's active in most states across the country. Here in America. And if you have like 99% attendance and you have at least a 3.5 GPA and you complete, I believe, 200 hours, depending on where you are, it's probably different, volunteer, then you can be eligible for free community college. Open to all students, white, black, brown, disabled, non-disabled. You have to have the ability to want to go to school. No one's going to make you do that. You can't get in trouble. You can't get expelled. You can't have situations like this. And that was me. I had a father growing up. I was from a broken home. My dad worked many jobs to take care of me and pay child support. And my mom was a deadbeat mom who took a lot of the money. And I was in a lot of after school programs as babysitters. And my dad couldn't afford taking care of me and paying someone. And so there was all sorts of people throughout the community that jumped in to help raise me. I feel like that gave me a really diverse opportunity to see the applications of social services and the importance of many people raising a child. I was lucky. I grew up in Parkville, Missouri, just outside of Kansas City, Missouri, in the north Kansas City. And in the Northland, it's a little bit better of a location than, say, where I was going every other weekend and getting pretty sad, discriminatory, sexist, bad police treatment by small town, baloney just outside of Excelsior and Richmond. But this is one of those spaces that this is a social, again, yeah, it's like a social credit system. And it just really isn't a good idea. It doesn't provide good retention or recognition or pride or accomplishment for working hard. And for someone to say like, well, this is going to be great because nothing like this exists. There's so many things that exist like this right now, grants and scholarships, but it requires a little bit of work and not just participation. The fact that we have removed standardized testing now because the pandemic just made it to her. And well, standardized testing is racist anyway. So I know it requires that you be literate and read. Well, we've got to measure somehow. I mean, you've got to have a standard. Well, we should just change it and fuck it all and not worry about that. Well, it's got a da-da-da. Well, you know what? Let's just not have any standards this year. See what happens. Look at that. There's more people coming in and our people of color and our diversity and all the people are coming in. That's really great. What's that going to say about the, retention and quality of your diplomacy and your exclusivity and your degree program as a whole? Well, for the next 1 or 2 years, it'll be fine. It'll be great for the momentum. And then all of a sudden that program will go down and then people won't give a shit. And then it will be reflective of the people who had that and were the alumni of that. And it's going to degrade the system from the inside out. $85 billion towards Pell Grants, maximum awards of $1,400 for a low-income student. You guys, $1,400 is barely going to pay for 2 classes. I think the average credit, I'd have to look. It really depends on states. I know right now I'm looking at, it's like $270 per credit, and you're looking at an average class is 3 to 5 credits. So in a semester, you're looking at about $1,100 to $2,000 for a class anyway. So to say that you're going to provide Pell Grants, which already exist, and these Pell Grants get later sold to private grants or grants and loans that build up, and Sally Mae sells it to Sally Moe, and Sally Moe sells it back to Sally Mae, and 10 small loans rather than one big loan. And then all these 10 small loans have the ability, because it's not quite big enough amount to be criminal, that they'll raise their interest rates up to 20-something%. And then it creates an inherent debt to the system. How do you know all this, Sarah? Because I took out about $60,000 worth of student loans, because I didn't have as much privilege as people might like to think, even though I had a 4.0 and graduated top of my class in my undergraduate, I still had to take out loans for my graduate, and I have a 27% interest rate. I can't even pay it off at the rate I am paid to work social services. It's ridiculous. It's a system that creates debt. So I can tell you firsthand, it's not the smart way to go. And from me to you, and it's not me trying to educate someone. It's just saying, like, if I were to talk to students now and say, listen, do you want a grant program? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The Pell Grants are these subsidized tuition student loans, and that families earning less than $125,000 are now going to be able to have $39 billion more to choose from. Guys, this is a business. This is a business. And guess what? It ain't for you. It is not for you or me or the average person. It's for big guys. It's for the elite. This is just the same regurgitated shit that they did the last time and the last time and the last time. And the reason that they're okay with people knocking shit down and erasing statues and burning books is because it just helps it continue. And the censorship just continue. Yeah. Then that way, by the time, we can do it again in 30 years because they'll have died out. You guys, come on. Let's do this. $45 billion towards meeting child's nutritional needs and expanding access to summer's EBT program. Guess what, guys? Now, due to the pandemic, we don't need $45 billion because there's all this like food. People are donating. We've got this, we've got that. Why do we need all this? Another $1.9 trillion permanent COVID stimulus plan provision. Permanent, providing health insurance premiums for those who can buy coverage on their own. Wait a minute. Who can already buy coverage on their own? That's interesting. Weird. Don't want to say too much on that one, but you guys read that. Extending through 2025. That's when last Tuesday on our astrological show, someone was talking about the historical events that are like happening every time Pluto reaches around, like the Byzantine era, the big plagues, all the times throughout history that Pluto has done. We're up for that in 2025. I know, isn't that crazy? I know, and the census has just shifted to where all these seats now are going to be more red now, and that's just, oh no. Extending through 2025, making permanently fully refundable child tax credit expansions. You guys, these dependent tax credits, earned income, childless workers, these are extensions of the octopus government arm into your private stuff that, trust me, you do not want. You guys, and the average AA degree, associate's degree, that's about $10,000, give or take. It's not going to get you a job that makes you any more than what the minimum wage was just raised from. And guys, this isn't going to be something that is going to be applicable. For the $50,000 in medical bills, it may or may not be applicable if you had any insurance or had any option for insurance at the time. It's not going to be retroactive for those of us who are excited for that. A lot of these aren't. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It is Hydra. It's an instrumentation of a system that really wants to have its claws into you. And if you guys cannot, I don't know. I just kind of feel like it's too much, and it's too much. And so I'm just hoping that people, if you have something that you feel better, you feel better about it, by all means, please let me know how you feel about it. Because if you're feeling optimistic, I would love to feel a little bit more optimistic about that, but never have I ever been a part of a government where it started taking our guns, making a list, doing a big census, requiring vaccinations, and that ended well. Never have I ever. And I feel like all the reptilians under the ground would agree. They know the story. We all know the story. We've heard the story, unless your stories were burned, in which case download your stories now. You can actually go to the library for free and get Audible books for free. You don't have to pay for audiobooks. They're mostly free through the library. That's still a thing. Use it before it dies. Anyway, last week were some really important meetings. And you guys, the meetings lately, if you have to watch Biden speak for longer than 3 minutes, it almost sucks your brain. So I don't recommend it, but we try and watch it for ourselves. And I would show the videos if I didn't think YouTube would yank me in a heartbeat. So hopefully if you guys can share, sign up for notifications, and we get to more viewers, then I will feel a little bit more comfortable doing that. But in some of these family plans and ramp ups, and Biden's speech was today, again, by the way, he's supposed to be addressing us all. We can watch. There was a world climate meeting, all the big head honchos, in this big Zoom meeting, and you have Russia kind of, mocking us, making fun of our president, and other countries asking why in a Zoom meeting is President Biden, after having been vaccinated, and the CDC saying if you've been vaccinated, you don't necessarily need to wear a mask. And if you're not, within 6 feet of someone else, and it's a Zoom meeting, we would like to see your face, the transparency of your face, the face of the country. And for conspiracy theorists out there and deep fakers out there and people that want to be sure that Biden isn't being fed through an earpiece or reading from a script, or that he isn't some shape-shifting reptilian creature or brain-sucking child-eating thing or AI robot, we kind of would like to see his face. It's important. This is a president that doesn't even address the people all that often. And now he's reluctant to address other leaders of major nations and countries in what should otherwise be very friendly meetings. So it just kind of is very symbolic. And then later when asked, like, why is the president doing that? There was a lot of ums and buts from Madam Circle Around. And in that House Speaker, because we're trying to encourage mask wearing, and there were people in the room near him, so he had to be held to the strict, but everyone around him should be vaccinated. Or are they not? I mean, it's none of our business really, but if you're going to be in our business, we shouldn't be in your business. Or it's a hokey pokey. Because guys, there was news, yesterday, news about you have to wear a mask outside and how ridiculous this is. Well, guess what? If you go to the CDC this morning, 11 hours old. What? Yeah, after backlash. Oop, beep, 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 beep. You don't need to wear a mask if you have been vaccinated at all. And the reason that there was the mask wearing, because they didn't know, because there may or may not be a shedding period, because it doesn't shed because it's synthetic mRNA, but it does shed because it isn't, but we're not sure. But if you did give it, but you don't, but you can't, but you didn't. But if you're under this age, then you're fine. And only people under the age of 25, as there have been like 600, I think, since the outbreak that have passed away, which 600 is horrible. But I think more people die of like gonorrhea or, heart disease or acid overdoses or fentanyl in Minneapolis on a single night. Or that's, of course, an exaggeration, but probably not. And there's really bigger fish to fry. And in this 100-day tout COVID relief recovery, we have the CDC really going back and forth on what is okay and what isn't. And for the people who are at risk, the herd immunity and the ability to have the immunities in your system, because the likelihood that you have been exposed is so high, and the return to student campuses. But wait, the return to student campuses. Now, this is something that now here in Minnesota, I don't know, again, where you guys are at. Be sure and tag me and let me know where you're from. We have some of our major universities that are completely quiet about the protesting laws and things that are going to be doing a reach around, like yank job on you, where if you are found in any way guilty, cited, or arrested in conjunction with a riot, which can be a protest turned unpeaceful at any moment. And we know that right now, a lot of those turn that way. And for any reason whatsoever, a shot stopper or a person's cell phone camera could be used as video evidence against you to say, look, I felt threatened. I felt oppressed. I'm oppressed. And then it's no longer peaceful. That's very subjective. And if that happens, then you are no longer going to be eligible to receive student support. That's housing, that's student loans, that's any of the education like scholarships and grants, or any state funding, which is your EBT, your SNAP, your health insurance, all that stuff that is being passed in this $1 trillion plan that's going to set everybody up on a system. If you are found guilty in conjunction with a riot, felony. If you are doing this or that, felony. If you go right to jail, you go right to jail. You guys have heard this skit, right? It's funny, right? It's not going to be funny when you suddenly lose everything that you have and you didn't even have an option to have anything else other than what you had. And you lost it because somebody somewhere said maybe that you were maybe seen over here doing this or that. And while all of this very intrusive stuff is being snuck around, people are walking in on, bill passes and going into the Oklahoma Senate and walking out onto the gallery floor and trying to hold a piece of cardboard and screaming and yelling in a very non-professional way to try and be heard. When in fact, these bills, lobbyists already paid for it, long gone, long been passed. Don't have to worry about it. Just look at like Puerto Rico. Look at things that you can see it happening. The dominoes are already set into way. What you don't want to happen is to be made dependent on the system. You want there to be opportunities for you to work hard, receive any kind of accomplishment you want to be able to strive for. And right now, that is becoming more and more limited, and the liberties are becoming less and less by the moment. And one of them is our body autonomy, our personal privacy to that. You're going to see this in the narrative of the news right now in the headlines. For example, you cannot return back to fall classes unless you have been vaccinated. Okay, now, none your business. Doesn't matter. If you've been vaccinated, here's the deal. If you have been vaccinated, you should have nothing to worry about. If you've been vaccinated, then what are you getting COVID again? Thought you weren't supposed to be able to have that. Or if that's not true, COVID really isn't as deadly as, some other major diseases that are still out there that we don't take any precaution against. But if you're vaccinated, you're fine. So why are you worried about non-vaccinated individuals? If someone is like, you know what, I feel like I probably had it. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, or maybe I did get tested and I was shown positive for COVID antibodies. So you know what? I have the antibodies. I don't need to get the vaccine. I don't feel 100% comfortable with the vaccine quite yet. So with my right and my body, my body, my choice, right? I think I'll just wait. Thanks. But you can get your vaccine and you'll be safe. And this shouldn't have anything to do with a school saying you are or are not allowed, especially when the majority of these schools are still and will still probably be, with the CDC extending wild and ridiculous restrictions, not in-person campus. If it is in-person campus, but it's an option to be in person, which most of them are, and people are probably not going to go in person. If they do, they obviously don't feel threatened and it's their choice to get vaccinated. And if they don't, some people are trying to make it a felony to not be vaccinated. I want you to think about the absolute audacity, the extension of government into your body that is, the absolute overstretch of beyond privacy that is, because that's redonkulous and absolutely not. Absolutely not. And right now we are already in an emergency authorization space where none of the manufacturers or the distributors of these vaccines are liable for anything. And what's ridiculous is whereas other major countries are banning some of these medicines, I dare we redefine that, we've got Big Pharma coming around the corner making medicine to help you with the reactions you got from the medicine you took to keep you from getting COVID. That more people are getting sick with adverse reactions, skin problems, COVID arm. If you don't believe me, Google that. Long-term central nervous system, autoimmune disorder, damage, equal and opposite to long haulers, all of which are very scary, but still not medicine. But Big Pharma's got you. Don't worry about it. They've got medication on the back end that should help you and continue to allow you to be more codependent on the system. But you guys, there are things happening still where the Biden administration is being sued, just like the Trump administration was often sued and accused of this and that. We don't want to be just one-sided. There have been a ton of petitions. There have been requests for or against the Biden administration on the coronavirus relief laws. where certain states are simply saying, absolutely, no, we're striking this down. We don't feel like this is okay. We feel like this is an overstretch. And I'm interested in, where do you live and what do you find to be an overstretch and why? I'd love to hear your responses and your reactions to those of you joining me. I know I've got some of you in Missouri. Missouri says, yep, we're supposed to get vaccinated every 4 months now. That's ridiculous. I have not seen it yet. They originally had conversations around conscientious objective status as medical necessities. But now, see, here in Minnesota, you've got, now I work with the Vaccination Incentive Compensation Program, not with them directly, of course, but as a state advocate to help people who might be mentally incompetent, usually definitely those having an adverse reaction and might now be struggling with mental health issue, and they get a caseworker that is helping them navigate through traumatic brain injuries or adverse medical reactions, or who are now dependent on the state, and we have to help you file your paperwork. Now, I'm going to be the one helping you file that paperwork. Where and when did you first start experiencing your problems, your symptoms? Can you describe those for me? We realize that maybe you want to send something into the VAERS or the VICP, or you want to start going with the manufacturer. How much money do you have for a lawyer? When and where do we want to advocate? Which department? There are right now more than 56 active vaccines, not immunizations. Those are two different things, for people under the age of 25. So if you're in or going to school, I know my dad, for example, he's of the generation that's like, well, we all got our polio and chicken pox and this and that. You know, maybe you went to a chicken pox party or something to get exposed. But right now you've got young boys getting the Gardasil vaccine for cervical cancer. You've got individuals receiving vaccines for things that they really aren't going to be getting any exposure to. And if they did, we have an advanced medical system that can actually help, you know, things with antibiotics, soap. And the vaccines are far worse sometimes than the disease at this point. And so we want to minimize the amount of heavy metals in our body. That's with our diet. That's with our exposure to lead paints, things that we're eating, things that we're breathing in the air, and definitely putting in IV into our bloodstream or into a child's bloodstream where their blood-brain barrier is still very open and particles can get in there and stay there and be built up in the pineal gland. Issues where we have a lot of autism or spectrum disorders because of this. And it's really scary. And you need to either have a philosophical consent and informed consent. And that informed consent, you might have a doctor or notary, someone who wants to really make sure that you're informed. And I do want to make sure any and everyone that is refusing a vaccine or wants to research a vaccine, that they are indeed informed. So this is important, you know, and this is real in your body. Depending on your religious beliefs, you only get one. So you want to take care of it. And for the most vulnerable, our children and our elderly and those people who might be nonverbal or already struggling with a disability, we need to be sure and advocate for them. Okay. So Mary, those of you in the chat room saying, gosh, I know I have to get mine. It may or may not be my choice, you know, for our dad, who is on the transplant list for awaiting a kidney. If he can get out of his chemo and all of his things with his health can be okay. But literally told, despite the fact of having a rare autoimmune disorder that makes him highly susceptible to, and with heart issues, having adverse reactions, he must and had to take the Moderna, both shots, to continue to stay on that space where he would be able to receive the surgery if able. And that was pretty scary to think that, oh my gosh, you are going to be in a space where you're holding your own body collateral, and that you are kind of being blackmailed or entrapped with your own vessel, and that you don't know if you're going to be sick. And I know that that my dad was really nervous and scared because he recently lost a good friend of his to adverse reactions to the vaccine. His name was Nate. And then also a secondary friend, Nick, and then a third friend, Buzz, who was very, very ill with pneumonia and on a ventilator and nearly died, and came over with tears in his eyes saying, please, please, please don't get it. I can't lose another friend. And just him and his friends, because they're in the kind of an older, you know, age group, were really, really scared. And I know someone, my sister's in the chat, she's going, Nate, and it's not Nate Driggers, but some other individuals in the friend group and individuals at Ford and people that were in that friend group, someone who their son was a rapist and molester. So I'm not particularly sad about it. But I know that our dad is an unconditionally loving friend to a great many people, people that were in motorcycle gangs or criminals and non-criminals. Our dad was always that person who was open to loving anyone and everyone. And for him, seeing his friend group die off is very hard. And it is hard because you can't necessarily see those people or be with them in their final hours. And I'm not sure if you guys have known someone who's passed away or had to, be in that terminal space or that hospice space with COVID. It's really, really, really a struggle because you want to help them. You want to be with them. When my husband had a series of heart attacks this past fall, our dad was also in the ICU and, talking with staff, and they're like, listen, you can't, even if you drove all the way down here, you couldn't be in them. You couldn't see, would it be helpful even if you did? And, you just are kind of trusting, again, you're trusting whatever's happening there behind closed doors, behind HIPAA, that though it has been lifted for telehealth, it's still somewhat strict for doctors who don't want to be filmed. And just like holding our police accountable, we should also be holding doctors and people that are administering drugs into our body just as accountable, that if we want to say, listen, I'd like to ask some questions, and they say, oh yeah, well, then I'm going to refuse you service. These kinds of things, listen, it's not okay. We should be able to have options. And what's most important is that just because you say, hey, can I ask some questions? Can I ask you what you've been educated on? Would you like to know more than my name, and also know that maybe I'm on this medication? I'm on, possible things that could cause some issues, or I'm a drinker, or I'm going to be having a surgery. I'm going to have a colonoscopy in 2 days, and I'm going to be receiving anesthesia, like things that are very important questions. Our dad's on a no potassium diet. And I know it's kind of strange to think about these things, guys, but sometimes people don't even realize that there are fillers in vaccines. And a lot of people, it's not the vaccines that we're worried about. And again, the language, sometimes when they're like, listen, there's nothing in our vaccines that is damaging. It's the jargon that, but what is in your vaccine that is damaging and harmful then? Oh, well, it's the fillers. Well, who's responsible for the fillers? Oh, nobody. That just kind of is a no man's land that falls into purgatory. And we are not sure. Oh, it's just for the, the safety, and it's a preservative. It's like natural flavors in our food. If you look at the Food and Drug Administration and the little loopholes in the Codex Alimentarius of what's allowed to be labeled and what's not, a certain percentage, it's like 3% to 5% of your food is allowed to be fecal matter. It is allowed to be fetal matter. It is allowed to be toxic. It is allowed to be pesticides. And some people that are finding themselves, gluten intolerant, or they're celiac, and they have a really hard time digesting certain things, that we're finding it's highly, highly, highly absorbent organic compounds that, lo and behold, Monsanto has made almost absolutely, resistant to anything. And they're super, super, super redonkulous, not even natural organic things anymore that we're eating. It's not that you are allergic to wheat. Your body is allergic to toxins. Go figure. It makes you sick. So it's one of those things. Organic doesn't mean organic. The labels don't have to be honest. You guys, when someone says, well, the CDC says, you guys, these are not even regulatory organizations of groups of people that are like humanitarian, philanthropic people that we should trust. These are money-making, greedy people that have had an extension and hand of authority for some time, and they're not about to give it up. So this is a really important thing, and it's something we should all be aware of, and we should support each other being able to ask questions. You should be able to say, hey, I don't want to get that vaccine. Can I get that one? I heard that one makes people have seizures and die. Can I get that one that I heard only gives you psoriasis? Oh, I can't? Why? Oh, because I don't have the better insurance? Well, how do I get the better insurance? Oh, work the job for the company that requires that I sign I have to sell my soul to live a little bit longer? Is that what you're telling me? Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. That's, I think, the most important thing is don't be surprised. And in the don't be surprised, the absolutes, don't be a Sith. If someone says, I haven't posted my sticker, I haven't posted my, I got my vaccine profile, propaganda, push, peer pressure thing. Well, why? Why haven't you done that? Well, one, because I'm taking my time to process something and I want to think about something. And that should be okay. It shouldn't mean that you're an anti-vaxxer. It shouldn't mean that you're put into this space where you're an all or nothing. We should be able to be skeptical. A questioning behavior is extremely important to anything and everything, religious, political, scientific, anything. But so many crazy things, corn, soybeans, and wheat. I mean, talking about tech talk just 21 hours ago, there were some blog posts going up about Monsanto, some of the grain market violators that are happening right now. And something that I know we're coming up on the last 10 minutes here, but we had the big meeting, I believe Russell Brand covered it. And so I would honestly say go and watch the big, it's not, I always say DARPA, but it's not DARPA. You guys help me. Russell Brand covered it last week and he did such a good job. We're talking about the major meetings of the minds. And it's not just like the Bilderberg or the Illuminati, that conspiracy space, but the big, smart, rich people of the world. And they come together, a lot of Microsoft, like the CEO of Facebook. No, not, Mark Zuckerberg, the money collector, but that kind of active puppet faces all coming together. It's not DARPA, but it's like DARCA, DARSA, DURSA, DARHRFA. But anyway, it's this collective space where they come and they meet and they talk about things like climate change and they talk about things like big monumental world movements. And man, guys, some of the discussions and the video points, DAVOS. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. DAVOS. See, my brain was there. DAVOS, when you watch this, it is kind of like, the Bilderberg, I've only ever been standing outside the Bilderberg meeting the one time in my life so far to be able to see that crazy nonsense live, to see if it's real for myself. DAVOS isn't even something I believe people can get close enough to, but it is something that is streamed for us to watch the inside, almost like, it looks like a TED talk. And to hear what the CEO of Facebook had to say about getting everybody online is really important. And as far as conspiracy theories go, this recent American news coverage talking about the students going back to school. Well, what about the ones who aren't vaccinated? Which, by the way, you shouldn't be worried about those if you're vaccinated and you don't care in that whole thing. But anyway, we covered that. For those who aren't vaccinated going out into public, they should be held accountable. They should be found guilty of, reckless endangerment. And that, of course, some of the language and smearing of things, these are like felony charges. They're trying to say that if you don't get the vaccine and you go out in public, you should be charged with a felony. Losing all of your rights again. Remember that, like owning a gun, voting, the SNAP, the EBT, the student loans, all that stuff that we talked, that the rioting with the honor George Floyd. Thank you, George Floyd. That they passed, that is going to really fuck some people good. Yeah, no, shh. Anyway, if you have a problem with that, if you, for any reason whatsoever, have a red flag popping up with that, DAVOS was like, we want to be able to help people. Bill Gates has had this idea for a long time, and we really think it's a good one. Bill Gates is so smart and helpful, efficient too, killing thousands of people, like crops and just groups of people, genocide, really. The Hitler of our day, if you will. Anyway, truthfully real. But in this space, it is, think about everyone's phone being able to prove whether or not you got vaccinated, because all of your information would be on your phone. Your vaccine passport would be on your Fitbit phone device, like all of your other My App and Tinder things. It would be so easy. And like your cryptocurrency and all of your things, you could travel so easy. Well, I'm traveling now, but it'd be easier. But I'm traveling now and I don't see how I mean, the Patriot Act, you guys promised that it would go away and be easier, and it's gotten worse, and it didn't. So why should I believe you now? We're better now than we ever have been. I don't know. I think I'm old enough to know better. And then you're old enough to get the vaccine free. You should show up tomorrow for the Johnson & Johnson. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in Minnesota. We don't allow that shot because it like killed people. People were like seizing out in their cars. So my state paused that for a brief moment. I mean, it's doing other crazy shit, but it did pause that for a brief moment because we can't afford to pay out any more money. Literally, Brooklyn Center is going to like go under. Won't even be a city anymore. So anyway, that's happening. All of this stuff going down. This is really a big deal. Mary, Tina, all of this, it's just ridiculous. And it's real and it's there. And in this Davos meeting, she's talking about how excited she is to be able to get everybody a free phone with free internet. And it's just all going to be free and it's going to be great. And there's going to be 5G everywhere and everyone's going to feel so much better. And they're going to be eating the Monsanto weed over here, drinking their fluoride water over there, getting their high mercury metal vaccines over there, you know, kicking out adrenochrome babies over there. It's great. It's fine. It's wonderful. It's just like China, who's currently thinking about invading Thailand, not Thailand, Sarah, Taiwan. And people can't believe they fell for it again, Matt. History is doomed. It is true. It is true. It is repeating itself. Anyway, China, done to talking in the news right now before we get off, because I got 4 more minutes and this is important. Nuclear war, you say? I know. Go to Google. Look at all the cargo things on Google, first of all, at the Suez Canal, because that's crazy. They're spelling things out in Google Maps. But Google Maps is old. It would have been something they spelled out a while ago. I know, but Google Maps, you were able to see from the live video of the blocking. So if we can assume that the blocking was then and that these pictures are posted after that, it would be after the blocking. I don't know. I don't know enough about Google. Is Google owned by somebody who could be like even like doing that? So I don't know. It's hard to say for sure, really. It's all really owned by China anyway. The grid is anyway. It doesn't matter, I suppose, does it? Well, it does kind of. We should pay attention to that. We should. And that they're getting ready to move on out. And in these spaces where China and Russia going, America, shame. What the hell are you doing? And China going, they're not doing anything they're not supposed to. Meanwhile, we're going to go over here and do this. And America's not doing anything. You've just got, you know, Harris completely avoiding the crisis. Is it a crisis? Is it not a crisis? Do we wear our mask? Do we not wear our mask? They don't know. We don't know. They don't care. We don't care. They don't care. We don't care. We don't care. We don't know. We don't care. We don't know. Anyway, it's kind of par for the course for her. By the way, anyone in law enforcement is very familiar with Kamala Harris. She's extremely racist. Her crime policies have put away more people. She is a behind the table, under the desk, get her done, not known for great things, always been kind of damaging to the law enforcement. And here we are where things just keep getting worse. And it's really frustrating. I'm really hoping that people can hold things accountable in their communities. They can check for seed programs being taught, equity things being taught, redunculousness as far as like sanctuary cities being held, segregative policies being prioritized. It starts in your own community. It starts small. It starts with hopefully being aware of what's going on in your area and thinking, gosh, do I have any way of still grabbing the reins of some amount of control and steering us back in the right direction? And what's exciting is that every single one of us does. We need to remember by the seat of our pants, if we still have any liberties left at all, and by golly, by gosh, I'm hoping we do have some, that we, the people, are the government, and the government needs to remember and be fearful of its people, right? That's the whole thing. That's the whole idea of being able to have that militia and being able to fight for your right to party, like the Beastie Boys taught us, our great founding fathers of America, right? And hopefully you are just remembering that when you look in the mirror, that as long as you have control of yourself, you have control. And then as long as you have in some way taught your children or your loved ones that they too have control of themselves and they can charge forward with pride, then That is what is most important. So I'm hoping that we are doing that regardless of what shit dumpster fire show we are in. And know that wherever you are, I love you dearly. And however deep and far we into the DARPA stuff, and you and I, all of us, despite China talk and the booming craziness and continued genocides going on, and President Biden blubbering his way through things, there's a big speech to look forward to today. There's a big speech, and I'm going to be watching his language, and hopefully I'll be coming on live later tonight. And at the very least, I'll be here tomorrow at noon, Monday through Thursday, for No Man's Land. It'll be the last day of the week for you guys to join me here. And I hope that you'll send me your questions. Check me out at paranormalsarah.com. Let me know with your chats and your comments below what's going on, where you're at, what we can maybe bring up and talk about tomorrow on the show. The hour goes fast, as time flies when you are having fun. But thank you guys for joining me here on No Man's Land, where we try and keep it moderately fun, exciting, real, and fresh, and talk the grave truth of things here from America and from our point of view. From me, a mom, a wife, a daughter, a sister, a woman, and, you know, just a worthless white nobody that shouldn't have an opinion. But trust me, I do. And I want to share it, and I want to hear yours. So keep in touch. I'll see you here tomorrow. Be safe, everyone. And until next time on No Man's Land.